Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Ryan Blair. He's a serial entrepreneur, created his first business at 21. He's the founder and former CEO of Visalis. This is a company that he took from the startup phase to more than 1.6 billion in cumulative sales. He's also named Ernst & Young 2012 Entrepreneur of the Year, author of Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain, and his latest book is Rock Bottom to Rockstar, Lessons from the Business School of Hard Knocks. Ryan, it's an honor to have you here on the show.
Yeah, it's my privilege. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so when I say that, look, I mean, come on, look at this. You know, one thing I didn't mention, which I think everyone, really focuses on about you is you dropped out of high school. I know you went back to school, but former dropout. You grew up without your biological father for most of your life. Former gang member, been in juvenile detention. And I read that, when you were in this detention center, you had a dream of becoming an author. And I mean, look at what just the intro I just shared with you here. I mean, it doesn't add up. And so I think I'm really excited to have you here to figure out, what did you do differently that got you into a position for me to share this, incredible introduction of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have a dream to become an author in juvenile hall. What happened was I have learning disabilities. I still have them. I have, everybody says I have ADHD. I guess I was an early on trendsetter in that cause because I was diagnosed with it.
Right.
And like when I was in second grade, I'm 40 years old, turning 40 in July. But in addition to that, I have a memory related deficiency called a route memory issue, which means I'm not able to remember certain things short term, but in context, I can remember everything. And that gift basically I didn't discover until after I found my first mentor when I was 17. But prior to that, I was held back in school. I was I rode the small bus to school. I wanted it. I'm very competitive. So I did everything I could to get attention, but I couldn't do it academically. And then when I lost my father, to PTSD, he was a drug addict, but his time in Vietnam as a POW had a huge impact on him. And he became very violent. And eventually with drugs and PTSD, he disappeared at 13. And I'm the youngest of 6. Actually, up until Saturday, I would have said to you I was the youngest of 6. And my whole life, that's what I thought. But Saturday, I found out I have another older brother that I didn't even know about. So I guess I'm the youngest of 7. And I haven't shared that with a single human being yet. But
wow.
Yeah, I'm on 23andMe, if you've heard of the service. And I got a notification I had a new brother.
Have you made contact?
Yeah, I got this notification, surprisingly, right, this Saturday. And I was like, I had an older brother. I'm not 100% sure how I contact him. He requested contact with me, so I'm going to contact him for sure.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a blind scenario where he's requested contact and I've accepted it. But I don't think who he knows his little brother is just yet. So it'll be interesting to see how we discover who we are together in the short term here. But I want to go back to what you said about being an author. Because I'm dyslexic, I can't spell. I transpose letters, and I've gotten a lot better through training and through therapy and through self-teaching and everything else. But I never was able to read a book up until I got into juvenile hall. And because I was a fighter and I was into martial arts and I had a bad temper and I was upset at the world at that time, I was always put in what's called solitary confinement, which means you're locked up for 23 hours a day. And they basically would only let you take one book in there with you. And so the first book I was allowed to take in there, and I'm spiritual and I'm not here to preach anything, but was the Bible. And so I started reading that, and I started trying to read it, and I tried to read it out loud because it was the only way I could, try to, I understand the phonetics of things when I hear the word, but I can't read it. And so I started building this knack. And then I decided after reading that I'd write to the judge and beg him for leniency. I was facing 4 years in prison. And at 16 years old, in the event that I did get the 4-year sentence, and this is for armed robbery, had I gotten 4 years, I would have definitely gone on to become a professional criminal. I'd already risen through the ranks in the gang environment that I was in. And my brothers and sisters are all hardened, many of them, except for one, are hardened criminals. Well, I guess I don't know about I have no idea what my new one's experience with the law is. I'll find that out later. But, my sister Heidi was heavily involved. She's half Latina, heavily involved in Latin gangs. And she's, in prison today as we speak, my older sister. My one brother went to prison for armed robbery for many years. My other brother's been in and out of prison. And, and my family is just basically professional criminals. I wrote to the judge begging for leniency and Nothing to Lose, my first book. I actually have the letter that I wrote the judge. And the reason why I have it is because I had to write it probably 200 times because I wanted it to be perfect. And I'd go to the warden or, the people that would watch us, and I'd ask them to proof it before I presented it to the judge. And believe me, the judge gets lots of letters, and I wanted to make sure mine stood out and that he knew that, if he gave me a second chance, I would do my best. And I actually have the letter, or at least a draft of it. He has the original, but I have a draft with a few typos. And the judge told me, he says, Ryan, I'll make you, and in fact, I'll never forget, my mother's in the court. I'm about to be sentenced. She's crying. The prosecutor is saying, give him the full 4 years. We don't want this guy. He said, doesn't look like it, this pretty little white kid, but, he's a hardened criminal of a family of criminals, and he's involved in all these crimes, much of which, we suspect, but we can't prove. And so he's here today facing this charge, but he should be facing 100 more. And the judge looked at the prosecutor and then looked at me, read the letter, and then said, Mr. Blair, you have one of two choices. You either write in prison or you write in college. And in the event that I ever see you again, it'll be in prison. And so at that point, I'd never had an adult authority say that I could be writing in college.
Right.
Like I dropped out of high school. I went to what's called a continuation high school. I never thought I would ever go to college whatsoever. Not a chance in the world. I mean, I never passed freshman year of my high school. I never passed a math aptitude test or writing test or anything. And anyways, all that goes to show you, it's like I'm now considered a New York Times bestselling author. I am. Yeah. I never passed an English class up until after I found a mentor, and I learned about my gift of learning. So I have a special gift of learning, and it's not easy to discover. The school system isn't designed to discover it, so I don't fault them. But once I discovered my gift and then had a place to apply it, I became a constant student, and I'm a learner. That's one of my favorite things to do. And I spend hours a day just teaching and learning and so forth. So, and it goes to show you that, everything you're going through right now or anything in life can be shifted to a positive from a negative if you just take the perspective that, that this disability could be an ability, or that, that all the pain and challenges that you're going through, whether they be self-imposed or you're dealing with difficulties that are outside your control, like the economy or a loss of a loved one or whatever, all the things I've been through, you can take those things and turn them into positive, if you believe they can be positive and you take the right actions.
Yeah. What was the basis of the letter? Just briefly, like what were you saying? Just, hey, I read this book and I feel
I wish I had it in front of me, but it's literally in my book, but I'll paraphrase it. I have it, but in essence, I was raised to be, I was raised very spiritual up until I lost my dad. And my dad was an Army guy. And so I thought I was going to go into West Point, become, a general one day, and maybe even the president. My dad, was a very disciplined person. He was a Green Beret, and, and until he got addicted to drugs and succumbed to his drugs plus PTSD, I lived a really disciplined, really focused, really competitive life. And so the basis of all that letter was, I knew that I was being bad. I knew I was breaching my values. I was being influenced by older kids from the gang, and also, influenced by the absence of, a role model. And that's part of the reason why I'm so passionate about, being a father to my boy, even though I'm a single father. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the relationship work with his mother. I tell you, I lean in as a father, and I'm really passionate about it. But back to your question, the basis of it was very simple. I asked for a second chance. And when I got that second chance, I prayed for that second chance, meaning every night I would pray in that juvenile detention center, please, God, give this judge, the wisdom to grant me leniency, and I'll pay it forward somehow, and I won't mess up again like I always have. And when I got that, when I got out, I honored that deal I made with the judge and honored that deal I made with God. And that's really the thing is all of us pray for our way out of difficult situations, even the ones that we put ourselves in. It's just rare that, a lot of times once a person basically, gets a second chance, a lot of times they blow it, right? I swore that I wouldn't.
Yeah. You mentioned that you come from a family, like a lot of your siblings have been in jail or they're currently in jail. And what separated you from your peers? So you got out, but just because you got out doesn't mean that you're going to be this massively successful person. I mean, what were you doing differently after you got out that allowed some of this success to happen?
Yeah. Well, I guess I mentor a lot of people. I work with the Boys and Girls Club. I'm one of their national sponsors. And, I lean in with kids that were like me, that are at-risk kids. Number one is, I made a commitment. Number two is I knew I had to change my environment. And, when I got out, the first thing that happened was, immediately, because I lived on a street that was, the gang that I lived in, or that I was a part of, was the neighborhood that I lived in. And so they knew the moment that I got out, and they immediately started trying to get me to get back into doing bad things. Right. And so it wasn't like I could just say, hey guys, I no longer am a part of this. And I had to basically work my way out. And so what I did, and this is what I recommend to everybody, is you have to change your environment, but you can't just tell like your former gang, your gang members, hey, I want new friends. The best way to do it is you have to find a job. Doing anything. And I found a job collecting recycled cans, and I did so in a town far away. And I would just work at that job every hour I could. And I specifically made sure I took the shifts and the most probable of me getting in trouble. So like Friday night, Saturday night, bad stuff happens. So you change your environment fast. I saved up enough money. And then by the grace of God, my mom started dating a guy who was an entrepreneur. And so while I made that commitment to change, my mom starts dating a guy who's an entrepreneur. Like the proverb goes, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Yeah. I decided I was going to learn everything I could from this guy. And he became my mentor and taught me what, about investing and real estate and the things that I'm, real estate, commodities, equities, all that good stuff. Yeah. So, in essence, but I guess the thing that separates me from the other kids out there is, I decided I was going to make a change, and I decided that I learned anything and everything and overcome any obstacle within me, to not have to go back to jail and have to go back to where I was. Because I hated it. I did not like being in there.
I don't think anyone does.
I still have dreams to this day that I remember, dreams to this day about being in there. It's just not a fun place to be. And the jail that I was in, there were guys that murdered people, all around me. So it wasn't fun.
Does being in jail or having been locked up, or especially being in that confinement where you're just alone, which I think is one of the worst things you can do to a human, is socially confine him. It's horrible for the mind. Does that, and then you say you have these kind of like nightmares, these dreams about it. When you wake up, does that just make you feel so like, wow, like you just value your time and freedom so much more? Like,
So freedom is everything, right? You know what I mean? Like and people, we take for granted our freedoms, and then until we lose them. And we have freedom all around us right now. And your audience has this freedom listening to this podcast, and and we're so blessed for it, but we take it for granted until it gets removed from us. And like you might have the freedom of having good health right now. And one of my dear friends, and one of the investments I made just today, I invested in his company, and he's become friends with me. Just called me today and said he has MS and a brain tumor, and he's a young guy. And and now his freedom is not the same as it was. And so freedom is everything, right? And so when you have it, you covet it. And when you don't, you realize how important it is and how valuable it is. And then how blessed we are as a society, particularly if you live in the Western society. Right. Man, are we lucky, right? We're so lucky, and we take it for granted. And that's a shame. But sorry, that's a rant on the subject of freedom.
No, that is freedom is everything. And I think it's like you sometimes think you have it really bad. You're like, oh, I got all these challenges. But then when you really lose your freedom or your health, which I think is a form of loss of freedom, you realize, wow, I really actually had it really good. Those were actually minor problems that weren't that big of a deal at all. So I think being grateful for the freedom is key but being grateful, but obviously you have to take action.
By the way, one thing I'll just tell you, a lot of people they write into me on social media. I mean, my book I've been blessed. It's like launching in Germany and all around the world. Nothing to Lose has been sold in, tons of languages. And I mean, today it's still selling like all over the place in China and Korea and Russia and blah, blah, blah. And I have people write into me every single day asking for advice. And, in particular, when people are depressed or when people, they don't know what to do, my number one piece of advice is, get out of your head, get out of your house and go give back to somebody that has it worse than you do. And one of the most, the things that really changed my life was when I was in an orphanage in Jamaica in a very bad part of the, Kingston. And, there's gang lords and warlords and I'm feeding kids meals. And I'm realizing there's nothing in this system. I have it so good.
Yeah.
I could be broke, but where I'm at right now, there's a kid in Africa that is just as smart as me, or a man in Africa, just as smart as me, that has it 10 times harder than I ever could imagine. They've witnessed worse things. They've struggled, and they're happier, more positive than I am. Who am I to be complaining about my life, right?
Wow.
And it's real easy, though, to get caught up in everything that is going wrong and forget, how grateful we should be for what we do have.
Yeah. First world problems. Your Uber shows up 10 minutes late.
But believe me, I'm not like walking around like I'm Gandhi here.
Right.
I lose my temper and I get really upset a lot more than I should. It's one of the things that I'm working on is my reaction to certain things. But when I get out there and I work with, say, kids at the Boys and Girls Club, or I give back and I donate a lot of time and a lot of money to a lot of causes that I don't share publicly.
Yeah.
And what I receive back from that is well beyond what I give, which is just to know that, that I'm able to make the world a little better place. And so everybody has that capacity with them. They just have to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Suffering ends where gratitude begins. Is what I'm getting from you.
Yeah. Well, they say that gratitude's the highest virtue. I forget who said it, but there's a quote. It's gratitude's the highest virtue because without it, no other virtue can be obtained.
Oh, wow. And thank you for sharing that. Is there a conversation? You talked about your mother was dating a man who they later married from what I read and became your stepfather. Is there a conversation that you had with your stepfather that just really hit you that you still remember to this day?
Yeah. Well, hundreds of them.
Right.
In fact, Nothing to Lose so I wrote Nothing to Lose in 2010. 2009. I self-published it at first. And then Penguin found out about it. I sold a few copies, not a lot. And they bought it. And that was in 2010. At that time, it was right about to be published. My business, Visalis, was suffering. It wasn't doing great. It was probably $9 million a year business and going out of business. We were within a month of bankruptcy because the recession had taken so much from us.
Yeah.
And then my stepdad, all of a sudden gets struck with cancer and he died in my arms within 2 weeks.
Wow.
During that period of time, I rewrote Nothing to Lose and I really reflected on all the lessons that he taught me. And so a lot of my writing and my passion for helping others and mentoring others is because I did not realize all the gifts that he was giving me subtly until after I'd lost him, And so there's a number of them that I write about, both the Rock Bottom to Rockstar and Nothing to Lose. And I filmed a documentary called Nothing to Lose. It's on YouTube and it's free. If you type in Nothing to Lose, a documentary. And I gave it away for free to the world because I wanted to pay tribute to the mentors that I've had and the lessons I've learned, because without them, I would not be where I'm at today. And I'm grateful for all of it. There's a number of things that he taught me on the subject of money. And in fact, if you go to YouTube, if you're interested in this and you type in Ryan Blair, Bob Hunt, Bobhunt, eulogy, you'll see the actual eulogy. It's about a 10-minute eulogy that I gave at his funeral. I think that'll tell you everything that the man taught me and how much I care. But he taught me principles and values and things to this day that I use. And then secondarily, I have significant holdings in real estate now. And so he's like an angel with me at all times. Even though he's gone, I'm constantly asking him. And believe me, I don't have direct conversations with the angels, and I'm spiritual, but I don't have direct relationship with spirits and ghosts and things like that all around me. But I tell you, I ask him every day for advice, and I always ask this question: what would Bob Hunt do? So in my real estate holdings, when a tenant calls and they have a complaint, or when I'm looking at an acquisition of something or looking at an office building I'm buying or whatever, I always try to go back to what would Bob Hunt do? What decision would he make here? And I use that as a reference point constantly.
Yeah. I think it really shows a couple of things I'm getting from you is just the power of mentors and the power of being, in the right environments, because you were in one environment when you were younger, there was a shift and you made that shift, and then the mentor appeared, and from then on, it seems like your circle of influence has been just constantly growing.
It has been, but I'll tell you, like you guys, and this is one of the interesting things, like on paper, you're like, all right, I tell people I was mentored by John Wooden, the UCLA head coach,
Wow.
Hall of Fame, and he's since passed away.
Wow.
I've been mentored by Coach Dale Brown. Dan Gilbert, the owner of Cavaliers, owner of Quicken Loans, is a personal mentor of mine. I'm on the board of directors with Robert De Niro and Robert F. Kennedy, who are friends and mentors of mine. I could go down a list like Paul Allen, founder of Microsoft, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying all this stuff to brag. I'm saying all this stuff because I figured out a process and a method and the practices to attract and develop relationships with some of the greatest people of all time in the history of leadership. I've been blessed to go to the White House. I've been blessed to meet President, Obama and President Trump. And I'm not going to tell you what my politics are. I did name my son. Right. I did name my son Reagan, but boy, am I worried about where we are in the world right now.
Right.
So, but I'll tell you, I could never imagine that I'd be, vetted by Secret Service and be in the frickin' White House with the president, or any of the weird situations that I found myself so privileged to be in. But the reason why I have been able to do this is because I created a system, I created practices and principles that got me there. And once I got in an opportunity, I took the shot. One of my favorite songs is "Lose Yourself" by Eminem.
Right.
You only get one shot, and every day I get shots and I take them. And sometimes I miss them. Sometimes I'm mad at myself that I didn't take them. And back to your thing about environment. So I have this environment today that looks like, a fairy tale. It doesn't add up, right? It's like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
Well,
it seems unreal as what it is.
I pinch myself. And I'll tell you and your audience, the only reason why I believe I'm even still on this planet to this day is, because I've had all the joy and fulfillment I could ever dream of. Like I've lived every life moment, you could imagine. Like I never dreamed I'd buy my own jet or sit in the room with thought leaders and dignitaries or have, a beautiful cabin and off the grid in the forest or all this stuff, or jet setting or $1 billion this or whatever the hell, you ever dream of. I somehow found my way to many of them, not all of them. There's some that I'm still working on. But back to the thing about environment. It looks like I got the best environment of all time, but I'm constantly radically changing my environment daily, or not daily, but as much as I possibly can, because you have to change the people you surround yourself with constantly. When you run a big company like I have and I do, and now with my VC fund, #1, I have the privilege of working in multi-billion-dollar, I've invested in some unicorns and I've seen the best practices of some great people, and I happen to have ownership in some big companies now. And I'm constantly saying to myself, is this person serving my purpose? Is this person helping me get better and strengthening me? Or do I need to put them on the back burner and add a new person into my circle? Or do I need to spend my time elsewhere? Do I need to get, out of the house or out of LA or out of, this mode? And I'm constantly re-engineering my circle, who I spend my time with and how I spend my time. And it's never fixed, and it never works perfectly. And so, because I have such huge dreams and aspirations, I'm not content. And so I'm constantly disrupting my environment.
What is driving you to do this? Because you've reached such a high level. And even if we're to go back in time in your 20s, when you sold, there was a company you sold and you sold it for millions. And then you invested that money, taking a risk, to save Visalis.
And I lost it all.
And it's like, what is driving you? You could have taken that million and, you kept going. And so I'm wondering here, what's the drive?
So let me tell everybody on the phone here, and it's interesting in our society, people get all weird when I talk about money, or anybody does. And one of the things is when it comes to money is energy. Right? So all money is a piece of stupid paper that matters nothing. Because you look at $1 from a currency in, say the Nigerian dollar or the Chinese dollar, right? Equivalent is it's 1 trillion to 1 in some cases, right? So one piece of paper and another piece of paper has value. So what is value? Value is energy. What is money? Money is energy. So I want to accumulate as much energy as I possibly can. Why do I want to accumulate that energy? Because the world needs some change, right? I've been gifted from God, and I believe, or the universe or whatever, to have this talent, this opportunity, this time in our civilization. And so, who am I to basically take that energy and only, take it just for myself selfishly? My job is to take that energy and to utilize it, make change in the world. And the world needs a lot of change. And the only way that it's going to happen is if certain people like us, entrepreneurs like yourself, having this podcast, you're making a change right now, right? You don't have to do this. I don't have to do this meeting, right? But we're doing it because we want to make some sort of a change.
Right.
And so secondarily, I know for a fact that, and the deal that I made with God was, give me these resources and give me this opportunity, and I'll pay it forward tenfold. And so every night, every day I wake up and I'll get an email from somebody, I pinch myself, or I'll have a deal go through, like it's public and stuff, where all of a sudden I'm the highest paid person in all of Wall Street, or the youngest this or whatever. And I'm like, all right, I got to go back to work. So it's more of a principle thing, and it's a pay it forward thing. And then the last item is I'm 40 years old, about to be 40. I turned 40 in July. I have an 8-year-old boy. I want my boy Reagan, who has autism, to see a model of a father who is there for him, who leads by example. And one day, when I'm gone, I want Reagan to take the name that I leave him. His name's Ryan Reagan Blair. My name's Ryan Blair. I want Reagan to take that name and continue my legacy. But I don't want him to continue my legacy having to go through the same pains and tribulations that I have. I want him to continue my legacy in whatever way possible, but I want him just to do 10 times, add 10 times more value to the planet than I possibly could fathom, either by giving my money away to the right causes, or by taking what I've learned and what I've done and doing even better. That's the dream, right? But I don't know that he'll have the sophistication and he'll be able to get to that point. I think he will. And I've been in a long battle with autism, and he's making a lot of progress, but, I don't know what I don't know, and only time will tell. But I'll tell you this, I know that no matter, I know that when he's 25 years old, he'll know that his dad did everything he possibly could to not only impact his life, but to impact a million other lives of kids that are less fortunate than him. And so I guess that's it. That's what keeps me going. Money isn't money. Money doesn't lead, it follows. It follows something else. It's like, it's more, the more value you create, the more money you get. And most people, they got it wrong. So my method for goal setting is real simple. I say to myself, how much money do I want to give away this year? So like, let's say I want to give away a big number. My number, I have no association to numbers. So you might think it's weird that I'm saying this, or people might judge me, but like, money doesn't matter to me at all. I haven't looked in a bank account in years. Obviously I have great money managers and great advisors, and I do, look at my finances on like a monthly basis. But I wake up every day and just say, how much money can I give away today or this year? And I want it to be such a big number that I have to make more in order to fulfill it. So if I wanted to give 100 million cash away this year, I'm going to have to generate more revenue or more income in order to facilitate that. So maybe I got to earn 200 million to give away 100 million. And I know that's a big number, so let's just make it more logical. Like, in order for me to give away $1 million, I got to make 2 million. Or in order for me to give away 100 grand this year, I got to make 200 grand, right? So all the people out there listening, if you say that you want to make 200,000 because you want to give 100 away, the world will conspire to help you do it. But if you say you want to make $200,000 so that way you could be happy and you could save 100,000, right, good luck.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Is it we're willing to do more and work harder and overcome those challenges for others and in giving rather than doing it for ourselves? It's kind of is it selfish or?
Well, I don't need it, right? So like, you have needs and wants, and once your needs are taken care of, then why would you do anything you don't want to do, right? Like, right. I still have to do meetings I don't like. I have to fire people. There's times where I've had to kick people off of boards recently. There's all kinds of shit that I have to do, excuse my language, I don't want to do. And the reason why I do it is because, I know that, that it's going to generate a result down the road that's going to benefit more than just me. But I will tell you, not everybody is wired the way that I am. A lot of people are selfish, and they want to accumulate wealth just for themselves, or, they do it for their own ego purposes. I'm not. Maybe I'm selfish in my own way, but I don't need money anymore. And so I wake up every day and I say, to myself, I'm going to generate as much value as I possibly can. And I'm going to generate as much, revenue and wealth as I can so that I can, fulfill my purpose and give it all away.
I think it's a great way to look at money. Money is energy, and it seems like what I'm getting is your son drives you, and you like giving. When you're giving, it kind of pushes you and motivates you to add more value to the world, which is then just this cycle of just more value.
It's self-perpetuating. It's self-perpetuating. Like I'm looking at a whiteboard right now, and I'll send a picture, and maybe you could add it to the notes of this. But I'll show you my whiteboard right in front of me. But basically, I have on the far left-hand corner it says Goodwill, and all the things that I do for Goodwill. My books. I give all my proceeds from my books to charity. If people buy my books, review my books, share my books, every time they do that, they're basically putting me in the game to give more. The documentaries I've created, I got a documentary coming out that I just did on Chris Brown's life story. I just had one that aired on VH1 on Mary J. Blige's life story. I've got my documentary and Nothing to Lose, right? And all those things create more goodwill. My charity that I've done, and then also the goodwill that I create through, the products I've created through Visalis, or the investments I made in companies like Heal and Sensei and Saucy and Fragmob and, and some of the unicorns out there. All that stuff creates goodwill. Goodwill creates, value, and millions of people get impacted. Those millions of people buy more products, which allows me to create more goodwill, which allows me to impact more than a million, millions more people, which allows me to create more products, which allows me to create more goodwill. And so it's a self-perpetuating engine that I've built.
Yeah, I love it. Earlier, you said you take shots daily when you see them. That's something that you do. Would you say you miss more shots than you hit?
Yeah. Michael Jordan, that quote that's the meme. It's like he's missed. How many game-winning shots did he miss versus he made? Like you miss. I make mistakes every single day, and I don't. Opportunity is all around you all the time. I pinch myself because opportunity comes my way a lot. Because I have a venture fund called #1. I'm privileged to have people send me their business plans, or they read my book and they contact me. Like Elite Daily, for example, the founder of Elite Daily read my book, started the company. I mean, the list goes on of people like that write into me, or that I'm able to invest in or work with, and so I'm setting up systems in place right now. In fact, my fund is kind of like a startup. It is a startup. So I'm having to start all over, putting systems and things in place, and I miss opportunities. I don't see them. I'll tell you, like there's a company called WeWork that a good friend of mine started. It's worth $20 billion now. It's only a few years old. I could have owned a significant chunk of that company had I invested when they offered me an opportunity to in 2011, and I'd be worth billions today had I. And so I could tell you I'd be worth, if I took advantage of the opportunities that had been presented to me thus far, I'd be worth 100 times more than I am. But I'm grateful that I've missed those opportunities because I've learned how to spot them. And I imagine that, over the next 10 years or so, I'll take advantage of more opportunities than I did over the last 10 years because of the wisdom and, my intention to maximize on the gifts that I receive.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you view failure or handle failure when it happens?
How do I handle failure when it happens? I hate failing. The old saying, I like winning, but when I win, I probably celebrate a day. It's not even a day. Like the day that I got the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, I didn't even show up to receive the award. I sent somebody else to get it. And this is like the biggest. This cemented me as one of the. When you're a gang member, you do have to. A lot of times, people are like, "Oh, he's just promoting himself, or he's seeking fame." I have to do a lot of things because it's very public that I was a gang member, and so I do have to, have certain credentials in order for people to listen to me. And when I got that Entrepreneur of the Year award by Ernst & Young, it was a very meaningful thing. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to send somebody else to receive it, that's going to get the benefit of the honor of, me choosing them to receive the award. And I didn't win that award for me. I won it for the rest. And I actually didn't even win that award. What happened is my teams and everybody that's ever helped me and supported me and mentored me, they're the ones that won that award, right? I just basically, I just got the game-winning shot, but they passed me the ball, right? I took it and won. But it's not only me that gets to hold that trophy. So that, back to failure. I hate failing. I hate losing. And when I fail, I have really two things. I self-reflect. I say to myself, am I mad at myself because of this failure? Was this my fault? What level of responsibility do I have? And I believe I have I have a level of responsibility in every failure, even if I didn't directly do it. Right. You know what I mean? Cause and effect. And I somehow created this. And then there's some failures that I'm 99% responsible for this one. Right. Like losing my temper at an employee team member because of X, X, and Y. And then me being mad at myself, because I didn't check my emotions, let's say. Right. So I'm always failing. I fail in communications. I fail in friendships. I fail at being a father. I fail at being a businessman. I fail at being an author. Every day, I fail to maximize the potential that God has given me. And so every day, I have failed at something, but I'm not mad at myself because I know as I do that self-assessment, when I internalize and understand, the failure or the mistake or the short-sightedness or whatever, I then go, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow to not repeat this thing? And then I do notice if I continue to repeat the same failure over and over again, that's when I kick myself in the butt and make a commitment and change.
Something's got to change there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's now dive into the knowledge round. Just want to ask you a few last rapid fire questions. So Ryan, you ready for the knowledge round?
I'm ready.
All right. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost or unsure of their purpose? They don't know what they should be doing, focusing on.
One, purpose is everything. And so I guess what would you do if you didn't know your purpose and everything else? Generally speaking, purpose is, it comes down to giving back to somebody or doing something for someone else. Rarely is there a person whose purpose is self-centered. So get out of your head. Get out there and test different things that you think might be your purpose. Donate some time to charity. If you don't have money, I started donating a junior achievement right after I sold Sky Pipeline and went broke. I started donating time and energy to junior achievement in the high schools and giving public speeches at various schools, right? So just get out of your head, get out there and test different things to determine what your true purpose is. And you can find it. Secondarily, there's Nightingale Conan's written things about, finding your purpose. There's a great book called The Laws of Success. Napoleon Hill wrote it, and he also has Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book, and it talks about how to discover your purpose. It's very important. In Rock Bottom to Rockstar and in Nothing to Lose, I have my written purpose in both of them. So basically find the method to extract the purpose out of you, whether it be, in person physically by giving back, or go read books on the subject until you narrow it down.
That's great. What do you think is holding most men back from becoming stronger, grounded men today?
So that's crazy. What do I think that's holding back most men from becoming stronger and grounded? Yeah, I had some opinions on this, but believe me, there's things holding me back too. So, I guess I would just internalize this. What's holding me back?
Sure.
As a man, I would say what holds me back as a man from being better every day is, one, not asking for help because, I have pride. Two, I'd say not asking for help would be the number one thing that most of us men don't do that we should do more of, because there's help all around us.
Yeah.
There's people who are willing to help you. You just don't ask for it. So I'd say that's number one.
Yeah. How, and just is there something that you just have to do, a morning ritual, something that you do every morning that helps you jumpstart your day?
I have a lot of rituals, but right now I basically my life is a 24-hour clock. I don't compartmentalize my time with the exception of when I have to. So, my mom's in a coma. It's this was probably her last mother. She's not in a coma. She's out of the coma, but she's in hospice. She's only up for about an hour or two a day tops, and this is her last Mother's Day. So I have to compartmentalize my time. Ritually, though, I like to get at least a 3-hour start ahead of everybody else during the day. So even if I work till 6 a.m., which I often do, I'll go to sleep, sleep for 4 hours, but I won't, I might wake up to 25 emails and I won't respond to them. I'll take 3 hours of me time every morning to read, to work out, just to think, to reflect. And I don't allow, I try my best to not allow people to hijack my time ritually. I try to make sure I get 3 hours of me time every day before I have to deal with the world. When I can't have that 3 hours of me time every day, I make up for it. So for example, if I go a week and I don't get any time to me, then I'll take an entire, 24 hours and not speak to anybody and just dive into reflection and writing and processing and just having time with myself.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly important, that me time. Because once you know what happens when you start that first email, you're going to get the second, the third, and the date, it's already 4 p.m.
Yeah, well, and just keep, when a lot of you guys out there one day hope to have $1 billion or run a $1 billion company or whatever it is. When you do that, you might wake up to an email that, I was laughing. telling a friend the other day, like, I knew I was successful when somebody sued me for $240 million. I was like, I never thought anybody had ever sued me. And I wake up, I see the email, and I actually laugh because I was like, wow, people must think I'm doing something right if they're going after me for $240 million. That's, the bigger you get, the more drama and conflict and the more people that are out there that are trying to take it from you. And so you might look at your text and not be happy. And so I try to put my phone down. I don't try. I bought a property off the grid. This is probably the best life hack ever. Your phone it's a asset and it's a tool, but it's also probably the biggest time sucker, and it's the biggest problem that you have in your life these days.
Wow.
You have to have time away from your phone. All these people being addicted to their phones, and I'm 2 years older than the millennial generation, but I'm pretty much a millennial. All my best friends and brothers are all 20s, 30s. I'm like the oldest of my crew by a few years, and I see them just on their phone nonstop, addicted to it. It's a bad habit, man. You got to break the habit of the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny is the fact that you're laughing and you're okay with, like, it seems like you're okay with this lawsuit for $240 million. Just your attitude about it. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I would be. You got a great attitude about those situations.
Well, yeah. Here's why. Because, if you dream, be careful what you wish for, right? A lot of people don't. If you want to be a public figure and you want to be a New York Times bestselling author and you want to have award-winning documentaries and you want people to recognize you, for being a successful entrepreneur, right? Be careful what you wish for, because once that happens, a lot of people are going to recognize you and want to take your success away from you, because there's a lot of bad human beings out there. And our legal system, particularly in America, is so bad, the civil and the legal and the criminal system for that matter, but it is so bad that people have incentive to try to take you down for no good reason. And even worse is when you become a public company officer and CEO of a public company like I was. Then you have sophisticated people with billions of dollars attempting to tear you down so that they can profit from that. And it's easier to tear a person down than it is to build one up. And all of us have bad things, skeletons in our closets and flaws, and we all make mistakes. And nowadays with our public company markets, if you've seen the TV show Billions, you know exactly what this is. You got guys like Bobby Axelrod from Billions that want to take you down when you're a public company officer for no good reason or for good reason. And believe me, there's some tough adversaries out there.
Yeah. I think with this too, similarly, in some way, when you're a man who's successful, you're growing, you're constantly surrounding yourself with higher and higher level peoples. What advice do you have for guys who are kind of on this path, but struggling to find the right dating, like significant other on this journey?
Okay. All right. So everyone out there, this is what I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Andrew, I appreciate it. Gentlemen, my advice to you on dating is don't listen to my advice on dating. I'm the worst at it. Yeah. But those of you out there, as a single man, I was an ugly duckling growing up. I was 260 pounds, fat. I was a gang member. I never when I was a kid, like the head cheerleader or the cutest girl or the most coveted girl, I never had the opportunity. Those girls didn't like me. They didn't want to be around me. They didn't go to the same schools I did. They sure as hell weren't in juvenile hall with me, because, they're segregated gender-wise anyways. So that said, I then learned some practices and I got myself a position where I could date pretty much anyone and everyone I've wanted to. I have had my fair share of A/B testing on the subject as a technologist, and I have failed miserably at having happiness in dating, although I do have some great girlfriends that I've had dated, and I still have those relationships in my life. So if you're a man out there and you want to learn how to attract whoever, like if you have dreams, I don't know, when I was a kid, I'd dream about one day dating this supermodel or this actress or this, blah, blah, blah. And I've certainly fulfilled those dreams. So I have the process for doing that, but I don't have the process for being happily ever after and having the perfect relationship. I've yet to master that one, but I'm working on it. And maybe one day I'll be able to give some good advice on that subject.
Yeah, just real quick, what is your methods for it? You said you mastered finding, but you just kind of you didn't.
Yeah, that's the next book, right? Well, all right. So the question is ask the question. Listen, I'm a guy. Listen, let's be guys here, okay? Let's pretend we're in the locker room. Ask me the direct question that you want to know, and I'll try to answer it.
Yeah. So just how?
Yeah. Come on, be specific, because I'm not gonna. If you want to know what my process is,
what is your process to dating the women that you want?
The women that you want?
Yeah.
Or that you dream of.
That you dream of, that you can't stop thinking about.
Yeah. So the same process I would use to date a supermodel that I fell in love with watching her on TV or a Victoria's Secret fashion show is the same exact process that I would utilize to attract a mentor, right? One is you want to meet a mentor, you want to meet, a woman of your dreams. There are people out there, and you are in our society only a few degrees separated. So the way I would always do that is I'd find my way into the room with that individual by adding value. And one of the secrets that I learned from a mentor of mine was if you want a meeting with, and I'll give you his exact same. He said, Ryan, if you want to meet Bruce Springsteen, the boss, right?
Right.
The famous musician, good luck, right? Good luck. That's not, everybody wants to do that, right? But the people that influence Bruce Springsteen, they're not that hard to meet. So you want to influence the influencers. And the way you do that is you find out who influences Bruce Springsteen, for example, or who influences, I'm not going to name a supermodel or anything because I don't want you guys to, to associate, but
just supermodel.
Somebody influences that person.
Right.
So if you could create value to the people that influence that person, then you will get yourself into the room with that person. And then, then there's a lot of other dynamics that are necessary to see if there's a stylistic match or if there's a value, connection or whatever. And so you just basically, you see an individual that you want to meet, you try to influence that individual by influencing the influencers. And then now the most important thing that I would say about attracting a mentor or a date, but primarily
or a supermodel,
which is a mentor, right? Like, if I, I've learned a lot from some of my friends that are significant, very successful as celebrities and stuff like that.
Right.
Is, the easiest way to do it is connect to them at where they give back. So if they are involved in a charity, give your time to that charity. People see that the way celebrities work. I'm not a celebrity, but I'm in the neighborhood of an entrepreneurial celebrity, so to speak, but I hate to say that. It sounds egotistical. But my currency exchange with people is based on giving. So if I see a person giving to a charity I'm passionate about, or if they just give to me, like sometimes people they'll read a book and send me a write-up on it, or they'll review my book, or I'll see a review and they'll email it to me, or I'll see them defend me in a post when somebody's, spreading gossip about me or something like that. And when you do that, people recognize it and people receive that far more than when you approach them directly. So I try to approach people through giving back and through adding value to them constantly. And then eventually I get on their radar, and eventually from there I have an opportunity. That said, doesn't mean that it always works out, but I could put myself in pretty much any room using that method.
Wow. There it is. The dating advice and the mentor advice from Ryan Blair.
I can't believe I just gave dating advice. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, just real quick, 2 last questions here. Your books from rock bottom to rock star, and then also Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. Your books, guys. Go check those out, guys. Listening to this, New York Times bestselling book at that, and very, very successful and very value add books. What have been 3 of your most influential books, though, on your journey, Ryan?
3 of my most influential books. So one, and I'm always hesitant to say this, but I'm a Christian, so I'd say the Bible is extremely influential to me. But secondarily, I also study other books. I've studied Eastern religion. So I love spiritual related. I've studied Buddhism, I've studied Kabbalah, I've studied Christianity. I like to study philosophical and spiritual related things. But on the entrepreneurial journey, so that's the basis and the foundation. The Tipping Point was huge for me. Anything by Malcolm Gladwell. Yeah, I love Malcolm. Blink, The Tipping Point. Yeah. Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, classics.
Yeah. And the list goes on and on. I mean, I read thousands of books, and I will tell everyone, Nothing to Lose and Rock Bottom to Rockstar are both on Audible and iTunes. Rock Bottom to Rockstar I actually narrated myself. And so now I use a combination of Audible, Kindle, and then the hard book, hardcover or paperback. And I'll fluctuate between absorbing the content of a single book through all 3 mechanisms. And then if you don't like to read it all, buy a YouTube Red subscription and you can just listen to interviews constantly. Most of the stuff out there is free. And I go to Stanford and I listen to business interviews of like some of the great ones out there.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you for sharing. All right. And so thank you so much for coming on here. This has been a fantastic interview. You've delivered a tremendous amount of value to thousands of men listening. And so for everyone listening, check out his books, man. Go to Amazon, Rock Bottom to Rockstar, Lessons from the Business School of Hard Knocks, and then Nothing to Lose. And then the documentary, go to YouTube. I was actually watching it just before. It's a fantastic documentary. Just type in Nothing to Lose documentary. It pops right up. Hundreds of thousands of views. Check it out, guys. Ryan, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show. I had a ton of fun, tremendous value. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure talking to you, man. And have me. I'd love to come back on anytime. And any feedback that your audience has, feel free to, post it, hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, DM me, whatever. I see it all. I can't reply to it all, but I love to hear feedback from the audience. So I'd love to hear it from you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.